the one thing we haven't heard a lot about today, and we're going to hear about in the next two sessions, are how does research and insights play into creators and influencers? So, first up, we have two folks, two Ipsonians joining us, who are going to discuss the practical playbook for making insights an indispensable part of the creator content process, right? So pre-concept, what are they doing to help feed the brief and get the thing rolling? So Lisa Zielinski, SVP at Ipsos Creative Excellence. She heads up products, thought leadership, marketing strategy in the US. She's got 17 years of experience immersed in this world and has had a lot of success with award-winning campaigns. And her colleague, Lisa Sobilo, I'm going to say that wrong. Lisa, how do I say it? Did I really? Great. All right. Vice President at Ipsos Creative Excellence. She heads the creative strategy practice over a decade working as a strategist. Lisa, why don't you come on up?
All right. Hi, y'all. Good to be with you today. I'm Lisa Z.
And I'm Lisa S.
We're from Ipsos, and we have spent the summer talking to hundreds of people in the marketing, insights, and agency world to talk about how the industry is really responding to more creator-led content. And we're here to share that with you today. And in case you didn't know from the subtle nods to Western chic in our outfits here, hopefully this slide will clue you in to one of the key findings of our research was that people consistently describe this world that we are in as the Wild West. So today we're going to unpack why that is and what we can do to wrangle it. The second key thing that we found is that we're not doing enough to try to wrangle it as an industry. And so, as Mark said, we're going to be talking about how research can really play a role in this. So let's start with why this moment in marketing really feels like the Wild West and what we can do to learn from people that went out on the trail hundreds of years ago and what they experienced and apply it to what we are seeing today. So first off, creator-driven world feels very vast, okay? Too vast to really get our hands around. We're not in this place where we have a single path from the creative brief to execution, where we have just a few stakeholder groups, which we weren't really that good at wrangling in the first place. And now we have hundreds, sometimes thousands of voices that are shaping the brand. So it really feels like when you're kind of going off on this trail and you're really trying to figure out what path should you take? How should you get people to come along with you and get across this canyon and over the big mountain? So that's the first challenge. Second thing that we heard is that, I'm sorry, I just need to make sure I'm on the right slide because this is not showing what you guys are seeing. The second thing that we heard is that everyone in this world feels like an independent prospector to some extent, where we are, creators are really trying to get their bag themselves, right? Get their gold rush themselves. This is how they're making their livelihood. They're going to put themselves first before brands. It's not like working with your AOR where they're going to go rounds and rounds of edits with you. They're going to put your brand name in there a number of times that you want it to be in there. And so they're really independent and doing this for themselves. So that's another aspect to navigate. Third challenge is that I still think I'm on the wrong slide. I'm very sorry. No, we're good. This is okay. So third challenge is that there is this sort of fight for territory or land that we know happened, right? And thank you. So in the modern world, this is really the fight for audience attention. So creators, they want to maintain their audience. They want to make sure that they maintain their following. That's super important, and they have every right to push back on that. brands want to take advantage of that audience and really tap into it. So there's always this sort of push and pull in terms of the balance there. And then finally, there's no sheriff in town. There is no measurement happening in this space. So when we talk to people, only 8% of marketing leaders felt like they had measurement systems in place to actually understand the ROI of creator-led content. And per our research, most people are relying on impressions, views, engagements. Becca talked about that earlier today. And unfortunately, not a lot of confidence that these measures actually relate to brand outcomes in the industry. And we see that in our research at Ipsos as well, that there's really a pretty loose relationship between those platform-specific metrics and what the content is actually doing for brands. So, lots of challenges here. Should we maybe just like stay in our cozy New York cottage here and not actually go out on the trail? Unfortunately, we cannot do that. Creator-led platforms are set to exceed traditional media platforms this year in terms of spend. So it's not really an option not to get on board. At the same time, over 80% of the content that's being delivered by creator-led platforms is going out the door without any sort of research or measurement or consumer input. So research dollars are not following media dollars. That should be a red flag to most people in this room, but it's also a huge opportunity because if you develop learning plans in this space, you're going to outpace your competition. So, Lisa.
Yes.
Be our guide here and take us out on the journey. How do we wrangle the Wild West?
Well, Lisa, we recommend moving from the area of high complexity, which is where I think all of our brains immediately go with, right? Which is like, let me wrangle all of these individual pieces of creative, right? Can I test them all? No. So we recommend shifting from that to a place in the process that has less complexity and we think more impact. And that is the brief. And maybe some of you are thinking to yourselves, Lisa S., I don't know about this brief thing. Do they really have impact? It seems like a formality. Maybe you don't, because there were some great plugs on the last panel for briefs. But if we go to the next slide, we saw this in our research too. So you may be doubting the efficacy of briefs because most briefs could be improved. And this is amongst brand marketers, the people that are writing the briefs. 95% think their briefs could be better. So we definitely see that, but we also see that good briefs are important. We see from our own database that empathy, which is built in the brief stage with the audience that you're looking to talk to, is a huge component of driving effectiveness, even more so than creativity. And of course, creativity is still important, as you can see on this slide. And we actually think that having a good brief can support this as well, because we know that no creative person wants a laundry list of do's and don'ts that feel like they box them in to what the last panel was saying. So having a really tight brief that's very clear on these are the few things that we need you to land for our brand is going to allow creators to have more freedom to inject the personality that engage the audience you're looking to connect with in the first place.
Well, hold your horses, Lisa. Okay. Can we really think about briefing creators the same way that we brief creatives? Are they really one and the same?
Well, I don't know if I'd say they're one and the same, but I think we do think that creators are not really all that different from creatives. Like if you think about an agency creative director, right? They have content ideas, they're involved in the production and editing of content, their contracts are renewed based on the performance of that content, ostensibly. And if you think about that for social media creators, it's the same. All those same things apply. So there are a lot of commonalities in terms of the creative that's being made by either. There are, of course, some important differences, right? Namely, they don't have teams, they don't have a strategist to help them unpack your brief. They're not generally trained marketers. They're not maybe as focused on your brand and don't have as much history, right? But we think that actually makes a good brief even more important for creators because of all those things, and just important in general for the creative process. We think that briefs can, give everybody in the process confidence that you're moving forward in the right direction, that we're going to get where we need to go. They introduce that focus that we were talking about, the last panel was talking about, in terms of making sure that you know what is really important in your message. And then also, hopefully, they inspire, right? I think that was the kind of part of the original purpose of a brief, was to get everybody really excited about the task at hand. And so having that focus can give more inspiration, because there is that room to be really engaging and authentic, and put their creator spin on it.
Hold your horses again here, Lisa. So you've gotten us all on board with the brief being very important. The previous panel talked about that as well, but what is the actual role of research in this process? Are researchers and insights part of the briefing process?
Yes, I mean, we think so. We're a little biased, but we think so. So as a researcher, just a few things we would say to start with. Number one is use what you already have, right? So if you've activated with creators, you probably have a lot of creator content. You might even take some creator content from other brands in your category. And you can really, as we say, pan for nuggets, right? Evaluate it at scale instead of, individually. So you get some efficiencies there, and see what you can learn and apply to your next campaign, and some best practices that you can give creators. Number two, is to bring everyone together, right? It's important that we all talk to each other, that we gather around the campfire, share stories. Of course, when we work with brands on strategy, we like to connect them with their audience, first and foremost, to really hear their story so that it can influence the strategy. And then also what we do is we like to bring all of the other stakeholders together after that. So insights, brand, creators, an amazing facilitator, and build that strategy together so everybody's on board from the start. And then finally, you can add some structure, right, to this Wild West. So knowing what is important to measure, specific to strategy, right, which is different than measuring creative. And also using the research with your audience to help you focus on what's really important. So again, you can not give the laundry list brief to your creators. So I'm sure some of you are thinking, Lisa, that's great, but that's kind of general. Can you give me a specific example? And why, yes, I can. And as you probably guessed, it's about pretzels. It's not, you're right, it's about hair. So we saw some creator content around a Pantene keratin product, and we were inspired to try to guess what their brief was. So we wrote this brief based on what the creators said in their content, and we put it into the format that we usually assess when we're testing strategy, which is an insight, a message, and RTBs. As you can see here, they had a number of RTBs. So we were interested to see what resonated. And the good news was that when we put it through our Fuel strategy assessment tool, the strategy was relevant to category buyers. It outperformed our Fuel norms across a number of relevance metrics, including the ones that you see here. But what we also wanted to do is double click on what words and phrases were actually relevant so that we could provide more focus, hypothetically speaking, in a next round of this work. So we had consumers evaluate the words and phrases, as I said, and we really saw three key themes stand out. So number one was frizz reduction, as you can see here. Number two was this idea of the softness produced by this product. And number three was the quick results. So again, hypothetically speaking, if we were to give Pantene some advice for the next time they brief creators, we would say, land these 3 things. And then from there, you know, you really put your individual spin on the message, because these are what are really important with consumers.
Yeah, so then the next thing that we did after understanding the strategy and what was really resonating there is we took a look at the actual content. So you're talking earlier about, you know, mining for those nuggets among your existing content. So just put a handful of their creator videos into our assessment to understand how this content was actually working with consumers on Instagram in that environment. And so we were able to kind of glean 3 key learnings that the brand could take to the creators to just give a little bit more structure to allow more freedom, right? So sometimes, you know, we talked about we don't want the brief to be so constrictive and confining, but there are some things that we can do to help inspire the creators and to give them a little bit of guidance of how they can be thinking about creating the content so that it works well for them and for the brand. So one of the things that we found is that, you know, showing a clear before and after of the transformation of the hair was really important. We saw in the strategy that frizz reduction was like the #1 thing that people were looking for. So actually exemplifying that, seeing that happen through the transformation was something that was really impactful. And one of the things that we found is that when you did that really early on in the creative, that kept people engaged and watching, which is good for the brand and for the creator as well, because we're getting that attention on the content. The second thing that we found is that there were really some cool, unique ways that the creators were integrating the brand that felt still really authentic. It wasn't cringy where it was like, oh, and here's the brand. So again, just providing some more inspiration on how they could go about doing that. And then finally, a key learning was when the creator let their personality shine through and they really brought their own energy to the content, that was where we really saw a lot of goodness happening. So imagine, you know, we just did this with a handful of creative, but if you looked at, you know, hundreds of assets that you've created as a brand or your competitors have created, or there's something aspirational that you're looking at in the marketplace, we can really kind of look at those pieces of content at scale, evaluate them. This is actually a really good use of AI in creative evaluation, is looking at content at scale like that, really understanding what is most likely to resonate with the audience. And also looking at the creative best practices and features and storytelling tactics that are happening in these ads. So AI can look at all of this content and understand, like, where are we using before and after versus a recipe versus an unboxing, and what is really working well for the brand to exemplify those benefits that are really critical from the brief. So we're going to do a little audience participation, bringing this all together. You saw what resonated with the strategy. You saw what some of the best practices were on the actual content. So we're going to watch 2 pieces of creative, and afterwards, we're going to all vote on which ones we think did best.
The first time I tried the Pantene Pro V Keratin Repair Leave-In treatment,
Yo, it made my hair feel soft like cashmere.
and their Pro V Keratin formula repairs bonds in your hair, so it helps with like dryness and frizz. And when I tell y'all the curls were popping, they were popping. I definitely recommend this one.
Here it is, a very classic and polished holiday look for this season's Sala looks, thanks to Pantene Leave-In Repair Treatment. I wish you guys could smell this. It smells absolutely delicious. Step 1, let's start by separating our strands in the front. Then we're going to brush out our half pony and make sure that it's nice and tight. Super easy, and this is what it should look like with your waves. Okay, so now we're gonna top it with a cute bow for a little holiday flair. I feel like this just brings the whole look together. Here's the final look, shiny and bright and cashmere-like hair that lasts all season. So run and grab the Pantene Leave-In Repair Treatment with the link in my bio for yourself or for the girlies. It makes the perfect stocking stuffer.
All right, so first one is Kobe, second one's Erica. So we're gonna do a little by round of applause here. Who thinks Kobe's spot performed better for the brand? All right, who's voting for Erica? Oh, I see Jillian, okay. All right, so you guys are right, Kobe performed better. Let's talk about why. So of course, his personality is really shining through, right? So he's bringing his hooks to the table, and it felt really authentic. Also, his hair just really exemplifies the benefits that they're trying to communicate about the product, right? Like if this product's working on Kobe, like it's working on me, right? So, and he does a really good job of showing a before and after. Erica, on the other hand, she doesn't demonstrate the frizz reduction, which we know is really important. And she talked about a lot of things that she didn't really need to, like the smell of the product. She was showing it in use of a hairstyle. Maybe that is her hook, and that's fine. But the content was going on and just didn't really capture people's attention. So you can see how really understanding what is resonating with the brief, making it super single-minded, and really understanding those executional hooks that are going to work can actually help the creator and the brand in this scenario. So how are we going to conquer the Wild West? Some key learnings from today that we hope you guys will take forward with you. So first off, tap into the content that you already have. Go into that Conestoga wagon and like get your rations and find new insights out of what you currently have. Second is really bring people around the proverbial campfire to really align on the story. So bringing creators in, your audience, your agency, your brand teams all together to really align on what is the strategy, what is the most important parts of the strategy that we really need to bring forward. The third we talked about is really building infrastructure and how building that infrastructure can enable more creativity. So again, just making sure that you're very clear on what are the most impactful parts of the strategy and execution. And then finally, we hope we inspired you guys to circle the wagons here and really, take hold of this as an industry, because we really need to be starting to follow where those media dollars are going. So back over to you, Lisa, to close us out.
Yeah, and with that, we've reached the end of this trail for the presentation, but you are all welcome to join us in Creative Fuel Country. That is our practice where we do research on strategy to help brands build better briefs. So you can do that by scanning this very timely, time-appropriate QR code or visiting our snack bar over there. So thank you. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.